The Supreme Court is taking on the right to concealed carry outside your home. SCOTUS has just announced they are going to hear arguments next term in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Cortlet, and gun controllers are terrified, as they should be. I'm joined at the table today by my friend Olivia Rondeau. She is a YouTuber and activist. And here to explain the details of this case, I've got my guest friend and Florida man, Matt Larosiere. He's a civil rights lawyer, Young Voices senior contributor, and host of the Fudbusters YouTube channel. Matt, thanks for coming on today, man.
Pleasure to see you, as always.
Yeah, of course. Could you explain what exactly is the dispute that is going to be settled in this case that is going up to the Supreme Court?
So it's an interesting thing. At the core of the case is New York State's concealed carry law, which basically requires, in order for you to get a permit, you to demonstrate some kind of good cause, some kind of, above normal standard for why you particularly need to carry a gun outside of your home. The specific question that the court has certified is whether the state violated the Second Amendment when they denied the particular individuals in the case their concealed carry permit applications. This will have far-reaching consequences, though, for those states, those many states, the usual suspects when it comes to anti-gun things, who have those the may issue concealed carry permits, which require these heightened standards.
The idea of proper cause is so absurd.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me really mad, especially when we're seeing legislation that supports red flag laws blowing up, supported by both Democrats and Republicans, which really, really pisses me off because they're supposed to be conservative, allegedly. They're supposed to allegedly protect the Second Amendment.
Yeah, Matt, I imagine when we're talking about New York City, right, proper cause is probably reserved for if you are a bodyguard who defends Justin Bieber, but nobody else would be able to get to carry.
Well, or you're very politically connected or have lots of money and can pay the attendant bribes is how it usually goes.
Yeah, something like that. The wealthy and the powerful only. So, I mean, this is about like circuit courts and disputes between lower circuit courts over these cases. Clear this up for me, because I don't really get how this works, because the Supreme Court has not taken on a major Second Amendment case for like a decade, right? So they are finally wading into this. Why? Because I figured they were just going to keep being gun shy for another decade and not get involved.
Well, it's really overdue. I've written about this before. They stepped in Heller and then McDonald, and really, they didn't say much. They gave a muddy little standard that the lower courts immediately went and messed up. So that's what happens when the Supreme Court says something. If it doesn't say it completely explicitly, it's up to the lower courts to interpret it and find out the contours. So when it comes to carrying a firearm, that being the part of it, right, keep and bear, actually bearing these arms, the courts have gone two different ways. There's been a couple courts who said, no, absolutely, the Second Amendment protects some right to carry either a handgun or some other weapon outside of the home. And then you've had other courts like the Ninth Circuit who went and said, first they said, oh, well, you don't have the right to concealed carry, and we're not going to address open carry.
Yeah, I think it was Justice
they were sued
Thomas,
again.
right? Didn't he say that that obviously the founders did not mean that you only have the right to keep and bear arms between your kitchen and your bedroom?
Right. That would have been of dubious utility, during the things that were going on there. But so they actually, I think what caused the Supreme Court to step in was the Ninth Circuit. Then after saying you don't have the right to concealed carry a weapon, they went and said you don't have the right to open carry a weapon either. So they were basically saying there is no right to carry. And so I think that may have been the last straw for them to finally say, all right, we're going to say something on this. And you have to notice they didn't specifically certify the question of whether the Second Amendment protects the right to carry outside the home. They took the narrower approach, which was violating these people, or was denying these concealed carry permits a violation of the Second Amendment.
To me, it's so crazy how we have become so complicit, because people often forget the original purpose of the Second Amendment wasn't even for hunting or home protection or all these handy-dandy things that we use it for, which are great. It was to protect against tyranny. It's like the whole reason we fought the Revolutionary War is because we were under tyrannical British rule. Now I feel like we're under tyrannical rule again, and everyone's okay with it, and we're literally stuck arguing if we could carry our gun outside of the home for personal protection, when really the purpose is much greater than that.
Right. I mean, I don't remember reading the whitetail clause in the Second Amendment. The entire founding philosophy is based on self-defense. And in fact, the core idea of self-defense is where the concept of the people as the master and the government as the servant comes from. If you don't have a robust right to defend yourself from any and all unlawful force, no matter where you are, you don't have the right at all.
Matt, do you generally want to live in a society where most people around you, you can assume, are strapped and carrying? And do you think that we could actually find ourselves in a future where that is much more normal?
Yes.
Why?
Well, of course. So here's the main thing. It is an individual right. And it's not about like, and I appreciate what Olivia was saying, it's not about hunting trips, it's not about skeet shooting. It is about the core of the right to keep and bear arms is the right to have an effective implement to protect your body from unlawful force. Okay. And people, that is starting to resonate with people after all of the lockdowns happened and after, people were realizing that, hey, not only do the police not have a duty to protect you, oftentimes they just won't come. And I actually am part owner of a gun shop down here in South Florida. And the people that I was seeing to come in were people I knew from the community who were previously extremely anti-gun people. They now see, that it may not be sunshine and rainbows all the time. And there may come a time when there's no one to, depend on but yourself. And so I think that the pandemic and all of this stuff happening has created a generation of people who will not be able to credibly say, I don't know why you would want a gun in the home.
Right. I mean, it's pretty remarkable how the left kind of married themselves to gun control narratives and defund the police at the exact same time.
Right.
They really made it a lot easier for all of us who are like, this is why you're supposed to have guns. It's not for deer.
Right. I mean, the cognitive dissonance that one must obtain to simultaneously hold the belief that the police are like basically the Klan. They're white supremacists. They're hunting down black people on the streets. They're out of control. And in some regards, they are way out of control. But to believe that and to believe that we should not own guns for self-protection, it's crazy. It's literally insane to believe that.
Matt, can you break down how the state of New York, and maybe it's New York City in particular, has basically had laws on the books about concealed carry and transporting firearms across city and state lines that then they get rid of in order to not have it go to the Supreme Court so that it doesn't actually eventually get struck down and made illegal? What's been going on there for the past decade?
So this was the previous New York State Rifle and Pistol Association case. As you can tell, they've been a busy organization with how, there's no other word, evil the state of New York has been. The previous case that the Supreme Court agreed to take was on a prohibition on moving guns outside of the city of New York, right? That's kind of making it simple, but that's as complicated as it needs to be. It was an obviously bad law. And remember, this New York is one of the first states to actually practice in what we'd call modern gun control. So New York is, really long been a battleground for this type of stuff, such as the Sullivan Act, which was an act pretty much expressly designed to disarm Italian people. So what they had done with this previous New York State Rifle and Pistol case, the transporting one, after they realized the Supreme Court is going to take the case, after vigorously defending this law for about a decade, they just said, and then they were like, we got to get rid of this. So they worked, the mayor, the governor, the chief of police, all worked together to sign agreements, basically, and create a system to where this particular law could not be enforced again. And it was a concerted effort between all of these different state and city officials, specifically to create the legal result that the Supreme Court would have no choice but to moot the case.
Wow.
It's really disgusting, especially when you look that they were aggressively defending the law right up to the point the Supreme Court took.
So they institute it, they hide it, sort of tuck it underneath the bed, and then they bring it back out as soon as the pressure is off again?
Well, if they were able to bring it back out, that was one of the things that would have defeated the mootness claim. So that's why they had actually passed some specific ordinance that would prevent bringing back that that particular law.
Yeah.
So, and that's that previous one. This is now on their general prohibition on concealed carry. And in a lot of ways, they're kind of worse off now, because if they lose this case, their whole, concealed carry system, it's gone, right? They're going to have to actually, or it's likely that they'll have to actually give people, or respect people's right to keep and bear arms. Whereas previously, all that really would have happened was slapping down this particular law and then announcing a clearer standard. So it seems like they might have bargained, got a little more than they bargained for here.
Well, it seems long overdue. I mean, this is going to be a domino effect across the entire country if the Supreme Court actually does strike down New York's law. And then we could all find ourselves, I guess, state by state, looking at concealed carry laws being opened up. Is that pretty much what you're expecting to happen? And do you think the Supreme Court is going to go in favor of the plaintiff?
I do. The thing that I'm worried about is what standard they announce and how narrowly they draw it.
It's always
if
narrow.
they do the right thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. But if they do the right thing, it could mean, the next day, that's it. There's no more effective bans on carrying guns. But a lot of times what the Supreme Court does is they issue these, I like to call them tickets for this train on this platform on this day only, right to where the lower courts could kind of ignore it. So I'm seriously hoping that they just announce a clear standard for carry, which is what we desperately need, and a clear standard for evaluating Second Amendment cases so that we can just go out and respect people's rights finally.
I really, really hope they set a clear standard. And we do have a conservative majority in the Supreme Court, but as we've seen, Republicans and conservatives, they're not always consistent on the Second Amendment, especially when we saw former President Trump ban bump stocks and talk about red flag laws a lot. So I thought it was really interesting that you brought up how the Sullivan Act was basically targeted towards Italians. And that leads me to a really interesting intersection, because a similar thing happened in the state of California. The Mulford Act was basically, signed into law by Ronald Reagan with the support of the National Rifle Association to target the Black Panthers who were holding these armed protests in public. They weren't, killing politicians. They weren't terrorists, but that was basically the narrative at the time. So then Governor of California, Ronald Reagan, signs in this Mulford Act that basically did away with open carry in the state of California. And I think it just goes to show how a lot of these bills started off as anti-Black or anti-Italian or just anti-immigrants, anti-minority in general. And it kind of leads me to the discussion today that was basically popularized by Maj Touré, the founder of the Black Guns Matter movement, but that gun control is a symptom of systemic racism in many cases.
Oh, absolutely. The origins of modern gun control in this country are in Jim Crow. In fact, in Florida, we did have a wide concealed carry prohibition on the books before. And the Supreme Court of the state of Florida recognized that there was one purpose for that law, and that was to disarm the Black man, and that had never been used in any other way. Wow. There is Supreme Court precedent in this state, and these laws are basically copy and pasted just from those Jim Crow era laws. They just suddenly, if you put the exact same language today, it's not racist anymore, even though it's, you got you need good and proper cause, and you need to show that you're of high moral character. History is very clear as what those meant.
Matt, can you tell people a little bit about your YouTube Fudbusters? Because I feel like you're doing really important work there, where you are targeting and talking to kind of gun owners and people who care about Second Amendment rights to really clarify exactly what their rights are, how the law works. Has that project been working well for you? Is it clicking with people who want to know more about the nuances of their gun rights?
Well, you're making me blush, first of all, but it seems to have been going well. We're steadily gaining more viewership, which is good. But yeah, no, on there, I just try to address the current issues and the 101 level firearms law stuff that is often misunderstood. And I just translate it to plain English. While I am a civil rights lawyer, my background is as an auto mechanic. And so I feel like I always get frustrated with everything being presented in legalese. So I try to just translate to plain English and just say it as clearly as I can. And it's been really rewarding, and I've been really enjoying it.
Well, legalese is how they get you and how they take away your rights when you inevitably mess up for not understanding it. Matt, host of Fudbusters on YouTube. Olivia, thank you guys both for joining me today.